No one's ever going to give us feedback. Just cut that sentence.
You've given up.
I don't give a shit what people think.
We're just doing our own thing. All right.
You know where to find me.
3, 2, 1, go. Welcome to Cult Favorite, the podcast whose customer service representatives are standing by and are ready to take your call. I'm Miranda Simmons.
And I'm Mike Altman. I just want to be on the email team.
I love Daryl so much.
We will get to Daryl, but Daryl
he's just a treat.
My favorite.
A treasure.
It's like a Christopher Guest character come to life.
Yes.
It's amazing.
He works in the email department of LuLa Rich, everybody. We'll get there.
At some point, anyways, I'm Mike Altman, and we are two religious studies professors trying to understand all of these cult documentaries that you can't stop binge watching.
That we can't either. I mean, let's be inclusive with that pronoun. Let's not blame it all on them. It's not just you. It's us too.
I could stop at any time. Any point. If you want to support the show and help more people find us, you can follow us on all of the socials at Cult Favorite Pod, and then be sure to subscribe to the show on Apple or Spotify and leave us a rating and a review.
I'm so excited about this episode.
This is good.
For many reasons, not least of which is that this documentary does not have a subtitle. It's just called LuLa Rich.
LuLa Rich. Yeah.
And it's about the clothing empire called LuLaRoe.
Right.
What did you know about any of that beforehand, Michael?
I knew about MLMs from various past experiences in like mega church culture that is spoken about in the past, probably too much. But I
don't know how much time we're gonna have to like really get into that. I hope we can a little bit though, because the relationship between profit generating MLMs and church culture is something that I would love to know your thoughts.
Yeah.
Anyway.
When there's a line, there was actually a line that Mark, one of the founders, the husband says, where he's like, "We have a lot of people of faith," and it's a particular code word, I think, because it's like, I mean, it's not a lot of Episcopalians or that sort of thing. But yeah, so I knew about it from that. For MLMs from that. I didn't know about LuLaRoe in particular. I knew about Young Living, the essential oil company. There was a fingernail company. And what else?
So I'm also interested in how, we will get into this a bit, but like I'm also interested in how heavily feminized all of these products and companies are.
Yeah.
What did you know?
Yeah,
I knew about MLMs for sure, but also not LuLaRoe. I think that we should just really quickly say, in case you are not familiar with what an MLM is, these are multi-level marketing companies. And how they work is that there's a small number of people at the very, very top. And then those people recruit people below them who sell goods for commission, part of which travels up. So I recruit you to come sell a product, and whatever you sell, I'm going to make money on.
Not even that. No, not what I sell. What
you
I
actually
buy
invest
is
into the company.
Yeah.
Yes, which becomes a very big deal with LuLaRoe.
Yeah, you don't have to care. It doesn't matter what I sell. That's irrelevant.
And what's very important to keep in mind in the just structure of the way that these things work inside of American capitalism is that pyramid schemes are illegal.
Yes.
But MLMs are not.
Yeah.
So the difference, as I understand it, is that pyramid schemes do not have a good or service being rendered. And MLMs are taking your money, but they have an ostensible good that they are providing in return.
And
but they work kind of the same way.
Right. And a really good, like, if you
system is.
You want the deep dive into this, there's a This American Life episode from like 10 years ago that we'll put in the show notes.
Okay.
That it looks at an example of like one that actually got found out as a pyramid scheme because it wasn't really selling anything at all.
Okay.
Um,
So here's the summary.
Yes.
LuLa Rich, it was made in 2021. It's a series over 4 episodes that follows the spectacular rise and pseudo fall of LuLaRoe. They're still around. But they're a women's clothing company. It was founded in 2012 by Deanne and Mark Stidham. And it reached its peak in 2016, reporting north of $1 billion with a B dollars in sales. And
that's crazy.
Yeah. The way they made that money was like as an MLM, and the financial structure of those kinds of retail entities. That's what the doc is about.
What it's really about?
Well, yeah, because there's always that like veneer thing that allows them to talk about what it's really about. Anyway, the way they made this money as an MLM and the financial structure of those kinds of retail entities, that's what the doc is about. So here's the progression. We learn about Deanne's story, and we hear from Deanne and Mark. Like they're the ones that we see first. Yeah. They have an interview that goes into all sorts of things, but then they deny access to us. They do not.
They got them for like one interview.
And then they realized what the documentary was doing, and they're like, nope. Okay, so Deanne tells us her story. She's a single mom of 7 in 1995 when she meets Mark. They are Mormons who, as Mark puts it, believe that they are living in the last days. They believe in self-reliance, and they believe that the universe is ultimately fair. Those last 2 points are going to become like the cornerstone for the ethos of how they run LuLaRoe.
Yeah.
So we learn about their own self-sufficiency and entrepreneurial spirit. Deanne goes to a swap meet. Have you ever heard that phrase? I don't know what that is.
I've heard the phrase. But what she described, it didn't seem like a swap meet. Like I've heard of a swap meet. It's like you get everybody. It's like a yard sale but bartering.
Okay.
Like I'm gonna bring all my garbage from my attic.
Sure.
And you bring all your garbage.
And then we'll see if anything is useful for either of us. Okay.
Right.
Okay. So
But I didn't but this sounds more like a this sounds like a flea market.
Yeah, they're
this sounds
purchasing
like a flea
things
market.
still because she buys some clothes there on the super cheap. And then she's like, well, I could do this. She hosts a dress party and sells like 300 of them.
Yeah.
She starts booking a bunch of these. She makes lots of money. She does this for 27 years. Then she starts making maxi skirts and puts those into the mix. And those just fly off of her own shelves. She sells like 20,000 of them in 5 months. So that's when she starts thinking, okay, there's a business here, and I can't do it alone because it's just growing and growing. So she starts recruiting retailers for LuLaRoe. The company is named after 3 of her grandchildren. They buy in with a fee. It's anywhere between $5,000 and $10,000. So they buy on wholesale skirts and leggings and clothes, whatever, from her. They sell those for a profit. So you buy in. She's encouraging people to take out loans if you have to, get a bunch of inventory, recruit others to join. This is all growing so rapidly because of a perfect storm of different sorts of things happening at once. There's the rise of social media. This is post-economic crash in 2008. So she forms the company in 2012. There are more families needing extra income. There are also the journalist in the documentary talks about the phenomenon of just more and more women who are educated, who are also staying at home and not working full time in these years. There's a rise of athleisure brands. This whole ideal of what you can do by working for yourself on your own, being your own boss, staying at home, being with your kids is a very white version. It's also a very middle class, like traditional families. I guess this is how it sort of also dovetails with evangelical Christian culture. I don't know.
We'll get there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm like ... question mark.
Look, there's a lot of places.
Inform us, Mike.
Well, there's just a lot of places where like evangelicals and Mormons like overlap as long as they don't have certain conversations. And like, this idea of like of family values and stay at home momness and
Yeah.
right.
So there's the company is in demand, so the company starts making more of its own demands. Designers are asked to make 100 prints a day. They are on what call onboarding. They're recruiting hundreds of retailers every day. And meanwhile, we hear from women who are making like $20,000 in a day, like selling stuff on Facebook Live.
Yeah.
At their height, they will get up to like 90,000 retailers. So if you can imagine like 90,000 people going live on social media selling skirts, like this is the company. And that's how we start learning about this pyramid, because to have 90,000 people under you, the retailers, so these individual women who are buying inventory at wholesale from LuLaRoe, they make a commission off the sales from people who they recruit, but also, like you said before, most importantly, from the inventory that those recruits are purchasing. And remember, they're buying $5,000 to $10,000.
They get what they call them bonus checks.
They get bonus checks for the recruitment itself.
Yeah, which is like the $5,000 to $10,000 of inventory that the new person buys, you get a kickback on that.
Yep. So that's how people start making way more from the sales themselves. We hear from one person who got like $70,000 in 1 month just from her bonuses. So the people who get in early do really, really, really well, because this, all sorts of people are just going nuts for this product. Everybody wants to be part of it. And so it starts growing really, really rapidly. We hear about the charisma that Mark and Deanne embody. They have weekly live feeds.
Yeah.
One retailer says, if they asked me to jump off a cliff, I probably would have.
There's a very disturbing Zoom call where Deanne's face is like full screen, like just her like nose and mouth. And it was just like, she's like, I care about you. Like,
sure.
You care about me from a distance.
Well, and at the conventions that they have for their retailers, Mark starts reciting passages from the Book of Mormon, seemingly out of nowhere. We don't get a lot of context for that, and we don't get a lot of information about how he incorporates that into whatever it is that he's talking about. But he also suggests that he's misunderstood, just like Joseph Smith was at the beginning, So there's a little bit of there are these murmurings of religious ideology that are inflecting the ways that they lead their conventions and their leadership conferences. But there's also a pressure to look a certain way if you are a retailer. So then we start learning from folks about the weight loss surgery that they were encouraged to get in Tijuana.
Yeah.
And so things are going in a lot of different directions as the company grows super fast. Because again, remember, they start in 2012. Their height is in 2016. So they make like more than $1 billion inside of 4 years.
And that it's that moment when a lot of the image stuff comes up and the like pressure to get on a flight to Tijuana for surgery. That's the moment in the documentary that a couple people look at the camera like, I realized I was in a cult. Like that's like the sort of high control moment in the doc for this kind of narrative.
Everybody looks the same. Everybody's hearing the same things from these charismatic figures. Yeah.
And the messaging that happens at the leadership events is not like, here's how to build the infrastructure you need to sell, or here's how here's how you make a pitch to somebody. It was like, motivational speaking of a very conservative kind of nature.
It's bootstrappy.
Yeah,
we'll get there.
Very bootstrappy.
It's one of the things
you
I
learn about
the
drama triangle.
Oh, dude, the drama triangle. I don't like it when people like mention things and then like fly right by them. So the drama triangle, what is it? It's like victim,
That's an Easter egg for people who've watched the documentary. That's what that is.
Oh.
It's like a if you know, you know.
I'm a middle child and I just want everyone to always feel included.
That's fine. So you're in the drama triangle, you're the rescuer.
Okay, so yeah. So it's like the perpetrator.
The
Is that what they call persecutor?
I drew it in my notebook.
Love it.
It's the persecutor. The victim, and the rescuer.
There it is. So they don't want people to be cast as victims or cast themselves as victims is how they would put it. But this is when we also, so this is when cult rhetoric starts to enter the documentary. It's also when complaints about the product begin. Yeah. So people are, because there just is so much inventory and it's being produced so quickly. And as we learned from Brandy Melville and the system of fast fashion and how that works, the quality takes a hit. So we start getting moldy leggings and condensation in the boxes, and they start noticing a lot of shitty sewing and and images placed in very like precarious and untoward.
This is actually when I was talking to my partner about this. This was the other thing she knew, is that she knew about these Facebook groups.
Oh,
like she had seen this stuff on the internet.
Like we hear from like Samantha Bee, the comedian. There's like lots of images like at the crotch of these leggings, and so she makes a joke about a bee that is.
If you've never seen LuLa leggings, it's like wrapping paper turned into leggings. It's just these prints.
They're really busy. Yeah, very colorful, and at the beginning, buttery soft. That was the phrase that kept getting repeated.
Yeah.
Okay, so all of these complaints start coming in. In 2017, they change their policies so that they stop looking so directly like a pyramid scheme. And they change the bonus checks so that they will be based on sales instead of just on ordering. So this means that everyone's pay drops a ton, because that initial fever for like, I need to get these leggings is, it's a few years in. It's not so hot anymore. So they also say people can send stuff back and get refunded. There's no timeline on this. There's no conditions that have to be met. Just send us stuff. And so what that means is that more people who are on the fence join, but it also means that a lot of people leave. The company pays like $100 million in refunds. Mm-hmm. And so a couple of months after they change these policies, they're like, never mind, actually. We're going to withdraw that buyback policy, because that means that we are losing a lot of money. So we meet Kelly Porcaro. She's an attorney who files a class action lawsuit after someone was left with like $20,000 of non-refundable inventory. Because now we see all of these retailers with just tens of thousands of dollars of inventory that's just in their garage and they can't return it.
So the way they shoot the interview with Kelly Porcaro, she's like behind her desk, but the lighting is the same lighting they use when they shoot Mark and Deanne, but Mark and Deanne are in these chairs, right? And it's like a white background. It's very sort of, it's sort of lit from above and behind in this way. Whereas like a lot of the other interviews with sort of like the people who are doing it have more, they're more, at home. They're darker tones. They're at home. The background is dimmed, so you're focusing on like sort of their face. And so I read this as a kind of like, and Porcaro, like, she knows her shit. Like she's like this. She sort of lists all these details. She has all these answers. And so as opposed to when they ask Deanne questions and she like either doesn't have an answer or Mark steps in.
Yeah,
it was an interesting editing choice. They leave in this thing that she's sort of saying about her. She was an attorney and her daughter had never met a male attorney until she was a certain age.
Right.
And so I read this whole thing as this, there's this sort of Deanne, Kelly Porcaro, Deanne.
Point counterpoint.
Yeah, like contrast being made in the way that they're lit the same, but they're kind of like two, opposite sides of the coin.
Yep. There are multiple ways
really interesting
to embody authority as a woman.
Right.
And the way that we see that staged is really striking for sure. So she files a class action lawsuit on behalf of several of these women. There will come to be like over 50 lawsuits filed since 2016 at this point.
Yeah.
For lots of different things, for defective product, for copyright infringement on artwork, because, they had to make these prints so fast. And so they were just like getting something off of Google and then changing it a little bit. Then in 2019, Washington State files a civil lawsuit alleging that the company was operating a pyramid scheme. The company settles for $4.75 million, which is
nothing.
Chump change.
Nothing.
But they wanted to keep on trucking. So they said that like we only settled so that we could get this off of our back and just, be able to move forward. We also see a lawsuit filed by My Dyer. They were a clothing supplier. I think that they're now defunct. I'm not sure, but I didn't look too much into it. But they
it's because they didn't get paid.
Well, actually, so they filed a lawsuit calling Mark and Deanne like scammers and saying they owe us tens of like what is it, like $60 million or something, $62 million.
Yeah.
And LuLa Rich does have to issue a pretty big payout to My Dyer.
49 million.
They are settling. They are trying to get these lawsuits to go away, but never in any of that will they ever claim wrongdoing of any kind.
Yeah.
So a bunch of retailers get out. They lose a ton. I mean, the retailers themselves like lose a lot in their lives is what I mean. But the company is losing a lot of retailers too. 100 retailers, the documentary tells us, have filed for bankruptcy. So we hear some of those stories of just like, here's where I started with nothing. I had this just incredible gain of wealth and success. And now I've filed for bankruptcy and I've lost everything. So we hear those individual stories that mirror the fast rise of the company having started from nothing. But of course, the company's doing fine. They lost some stuff, but they're doing fine. So that's the arc. So what stuck out to you? What should we talk about?
Oh, so many things. I mean, I think the first thing I was curious about sort of the genre of this because it's definitely produced a little bit differently. Like a lot of times when we've watched these, the sort of whoever the bad guy is revealed, like you don't hear from them till later. Like you get the whole run, if they're still around, if they interview them, you get the whole run up to it and everyone, and then it's like, so for example, like Hillsong, we don't hear from anybody till like, they don't give the big reveal interview till like the end of episode 1. Right. But we start right like front and center. Here's Mark and Deanne.
They're the first people.
So there was a Deadline.com had an interview, like a video interview, like 15-minute long video with the producers and the directors. And it was interesting. So Jenner first, he was one of the directors. He also was a director of Fire Fraud. And then Julia Willoughby Nason, one of the other directors, was also on Fire Fraud and also did Shiny Happy People. Which one is that's the Duggars? That's the Duggar one, which is also an Amazon production or Amazon original. And then the producers, one of the producers also worked on Spotlight, won an Oscar for Spotlight, the documentary about Catholic sex abuse scandal. So like that interview was interesting because they had coined the term true comedy to talk about this as opposed to true crime, which is funny. There's actually
to talk about Fire Fraud or talk about this one specifically.
This one,
just the kind of things that they make.
Yeah, they kind of saw Fire Fraud as the beginning of that, but this was the first one where they actually used that genre term.
What's funny about it?
I don't know. I had serious Arrested Development vibes about this. Like, there's the guy Sam who is like the nephew who gets hired, whose job is basically to like throw parties for all of these women who come, and like he hires Mario Lopez at one point. Brilliant
move, by the way. I mean,
I mean, there's something about that too, like the millennialness of all this,
for sure.
Is a huge piece. And then you had like the Jordan, the fail son, who is the one in these videos when they're
He's
rolling
very
out the new
earnest.
they're rolling out the new policy about like refunds and switching to sales and not inventory, and he's like literally saying like, and this is so we are no longer a pyramid scheme.
Yeah,
the
yeah.
way we stop being a pyramid scheme. And then they ask him in the they have these deposition videos from the lawsuit, and he's like, they're like, what do you know about the happiness policy?
Right.
So like there's a and Jenner first, the director, talks about this as a way to initially get people to kind of identify with what's going on in the documentary, as sort of those things happening over there to those people. Like, look at this wacky couple, because they are both like, they're both charming, but also obviously full of shit from the beginning.
Sure.
In a way where you're like you're just clearly just making this up, and the whole like making it up as you go theme of the whole thing, topped off with like at its peak, they're like paying $5 million for Katy Perry to come sing, and then a couple years later, when all these people are going bankrupt, they're having another event where they're paying for Kelly Clarkson. So I think that piece of it, the idea being it brings you in with this sort of lightheartedness, but then sort of points the mirror back at us to show us the sort of economic lie.
Yes, that all makes loads of sense.
Yeah.
I am thinking about Arrested Development, and I think that it is an interesting comparison because I've talked with a lot of people about this, because I really loved the first 3 seasons of Arrested Development.
Yes.
And then, and I think that the reason that those seasons worked is that terrible things were befalling, and all of the misadventures were happening to this family who was mega wealthy.
Right.
As soon as the family loses their money,
right,
it just got really depressing. It wasn't funny at all to me. And it just, because then it's like, here's this stuff happening to these kind of, cartoon characters that we've come to know and love, but they don't have the same financial reality containing all of it so that it makes sense to keep pointing arrows at them. I don't know.
I don't recognize season 4 and 5 as canon.
Sure. Okay.
So what? We can just pretend they never happened.
Yeah. Well, except that I think that is so much how this stuff works. And so I think that the documentary itself was really well done. I think that there's definitely a case to be made to our talking about like one of the fire documentaries.
Yes. Yes.
I don't know. I struggle with that tension that is held, and I'm not sure if it's something that makes it more effective or something that keeps us from really looking in the eye someone like Courtney, who is sitting there at the end weeping, talking about her bankruptcy and like eating crackers and cheese when she doesn't have her kids so that she can save money. Right. So because we do get like all of these characters who are so specifically presented. Daryl
Trujillo,
the email staffer, like he works in the email department.
Yes.
He's so earnest.
He gets the best at the end. I wrote down in my notes, I wrote down Daryl's Marxist vision, because he talks about he wants to sit at Miguel's, the Mexican restaurant across the street from the home office,
sipping any beverage of your choice.
His is a vodka cranberry.
I just love it.
And watching people repossess everything in the building.
Yeah, the building get raided.
And what I love, because he says, because we're gonna win. Like there's this solidarity, and I'm like, yes, comrade Daryl, we shall. Sure. Like,
I mean, Lachey is another great example of one of the. She works in customer service. She onboards a lot of people.
Her line about the cruise.
Yeah, because like I said, this is a super white vision. It's also a super white company, and she's a Black employee at this super white company, and she is invited to go on one of their cruises, and she's like, I'm gonna pass.
Yeah, she's like, I don't really want to get on a boat with that many white people. There's just a handful of us here.
So we have like these And yeah,
Thank you for the invitation.
Sam, the nephew, a couple
Yeah.
of the kids, Deanne's kids. Like, so we do have those kinds of
Yeah.
like people who toss in a funny line or make a like present themselves in such a like
Yeah.
specific way that
It's
is easy to relate to and take away and kind of, be charmed by. And we are hearing about just the total financial and relational for many of these folks
right.
ruin.
But I think that also segues to like the other thing I wanted to talk about. So, okay, I've been thinking about aesthetics a lot, and I mean this in a very specific way,
Mhm.
in terms of like not just sort of how things look or the idea of beauty, but like the experience of aesthetic judgment. So, like
Mhm.
looking at something and saying like that's cute or
Mhm.
that's pretty or that's ugly.
Yeah.
What it feels like to make those judgments. So, Sian Nagai, who is a literary theorist, has a book that called Theory of the Gimmick. She has another book on that talks about the cute, the zany, and the interesting. She has. I've been deep diving in her work lately, and I found this interview with her on where she's talking about her book on the cute and the zany and the interesting, and she says cuteness is a way of aestheticizing powerlessness. It hinges on a sentimental attitude toward the diminutive and or weak, which is why cute objects, formally simple or non-complex and deeply associated with the infantile, the feminine, and the unthreatening, get even cuter when perceived as injured or disabled. And she goes on a little later and says, cuteness is also a commodity aesthetic with close ties to the pleasures of domesticity and easy consumption. And when you see all the videos of the women sort of selling these things on Facebook Live,
Mhm.
like it's cute's the adjective, right? When you talk
Sure.
about this with the Mormon Wives show
Yes,
too.
and specifically though, because I think that this is a really interesting. Like there are cute is a prism, and
Yeah,
there are multiple lights refracting
right.
because with the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, we talked about Tracy McMillan Cotton's
Yes.
like idea about, and she borrows it from another book too, but like she talks about how cuteness is also this source of feminine power that is removed from the just like extreme categorical sexual
Yeah.
ob- like objectifying sexualization
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and exploitation, like it infantilizes women, but it also is a tool that they can use
Right.
to assert some kind of power. I think it's to do with what you're talking about here with like commodity and
Yes.
consumption.
Yeah. And so like cute is something like things that are cute are things that are to be consumed. Like
Mhm.
toys are cute, stuffed animals are cute. And then but at the same time, like it's also cuteness I think is connected in this case to comfort. So, like you
Sure.
mentioned the buttery
Buttery
feel,
soft.
right? So
Yes.
like if we're thinking about like the feeling of having of like this object is cute and like,
Mhm.
oh, it's cute. I like that enjoyment. There's a comfort there, like as opposed to something that we would say is like beautiful or something that is
Yeah.
like attractive,
Uh-huh.
or desirable. And so it's like easily consumable and easily commodified, but then also about this sort of comfort. And like that's what the leg like initially everyone says in the documentary, like they were buttery soft leggings, buttery soft.
Whether cute is infantilizing or empowering, however it functions, it seems like the through line is that cute is never going to ask anything of you.
No, you're right. No, cute is not going to like the judgment of something is cute. That is a moment of recognizing that that thing is sort of there for your consumption without requiring anything of you. It's like it is
But
what
I'm
the
also not, it's like I'm not going to, because I'm still thinking of it in terms of like as opposed to a sort of
right.
sexualized beauty
Yeah.
that requires us or that engages with a different level of social dynamic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like it's conforming to a different script.
Yeah.
And that script is much more complicated.
And one could imagine a multi-level marketing clothing brand that is touting like sexiness, right?
Uh-huh.
Right. But that's not,
Sure.
you're not getting, it's not like these leggings are sexy or these leggings
Yes.
or these blouses are sexy or these
Right.
maxi skirts are sexy. It's
Right.
that they're simple.
Yep.
They're generally like they're one piece
Mhm.
of fabric or one
Mhm.
print. They're
Stretchy. They're going to fit different
stretchy,
kinds of
right?
bodies.
Yeah. And they're accessible. Like there's an
Mhm.
accessibility to cute. Everyone looks great. That's the phrase you keep hearing. Like, so cuteness is accessible because these cute leggings are, anyone can look great in them, right?
Mhm.
Which is why when the products start to fall, yes, it's terrible that they're like oddly wet inside a plastic bag, but really it's the idea that like, no, they're not cut right.
Sure.
There's nothing cute about having, a bee on your crotch or whatever,
Mhm.
these
Sure.
printings. So there's something I think as well, the connection you were like feeling out in the documentary between this evangelical Christianity in some ways and what's
Mhm.
going on here. What was interesting is the women that they interviewed.
Or evangelical Mormonism. Like, I mean, whatever
Right.
that, I don't know, religious
Yeah.
institutionalized family.
I like the idea
you know,
of
doesn't belong to
evangelicalism
just one.
being
But
defined by like consumption and
yeah,
family models. As
maybe that's
opposed
why MLMs.
to
Back to
theology.
my like, is that why MLMs do so well in churches?
Well, I think so. I think the reason MLMs do so well in mega churches, especially, is because mega churches actually have a similar structure to MLMs.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, all right,
Sure.
I may start out going to a mega church, and then I decide, oh, I'm going to become a member, and so I'm going to become a member, and I'm going to work on the coffee team that makes coffee.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go in, right?
Yeah.
But then eventually, I'm going to become a small group leader,
Sure.
and now
Okay.
I've got people who are now new to the church who are coming to my small group, and then maybe I'll become.
Well, it's the way that you don't feel lost in the Colossus.
Right. And
like
that'll
it's so big.
Yeah.
This is how you continue to create a sense of community, which is another thing that a lot of these retailers talk about. Like, and something that we hear across a lot of these documentaries that appeal to community that is important to all of us.
But also on top of that, and I don't know this from experience, I know this from talking to people, obviously, but women are not directly spoken to from the stage on a given Sunday by a mega, in that these are all male pastors for the most part, usually. Like,
lots of speaking about, but not a lot of speaking to.
Yeah, and so talking about like work and talking about like, what you're doing in the world, and God has a purpose for your life, and it, on the one hand, it's like, yes, it's motherhood and it's staying at home and it's taking care of your family, but like there's this sort of gap where you're never actually directly addressed, right? And I think that's where these sorts of things, step in. Like I've heard, you will hear women talking about owning their own business or having their own business or being a business woman, and they're talking about, Young Living or LuLaRoe or whatever.
Well, it makes sense because they're isolated at home taking care of babies. And this is a way that they can actually interact with other grown-ups.
Yeah. And
talking about something they're interested in.
And all the discourse at church that's directed about what happens outside the home to men is also only about work. Like if you're not a kind of businessman or a kind of blue collar job or something like that, you go to like some men's meeting in a mega church, you have nothing to talk about, right? And so I think there's a flip side of that where it's just sort of like fits into that template that's there.
Yeah.
What do you want to talk about?
Mine kind of dovetails with that because what you just said about mega churches and who they speak to and how is related to what the documentary got me thinking about, which is how and why corporate America loves individualism.
Yes.
Do you remember that book, The Secret?
Yeah, definitely. I show the video on the YouTube video in class all the time.
Why?
To talk about
what?
The power of positive thinking, metaphysical religion.
I see. Okay.
Creating your own reality.
Yeah.
How you too can be successful.
Rhonda Byrne's 2006 book, The Secret. That book was so fucking popular. Like it sold 30 million copies.
There's a movie.
Dude, I think it was a film first. I think it was a documentary and then she made
I don't know.
That's
my kind of book.
She made I truly do not know how it filled more than like 5 pages, but it made $300 million in 3 years. And her own story is similar. I never read The Secret. Full disclosure.
Well, that's why you're sitting here making a podcast with me instead of a millionaire.
That's correct. But it's her story is similar to the stuff that we hear about with LuLaRoe of like, my life is in shambles. Then I manifested incredible wealth and success through the power of positive thinking.
Right.
She's got like a 3-step process, apparently, like ask, believe, receive, which is based on a scripture, not unimportantly. And that idea of like, this is up to you.
Yeah.
But then that also means that it's on you. And it's a way that, and I think that this is also true about women, especially so much of the time, or I think that it preys on women in a very specific way.
Yeah.
Because women are used to having all of the responsibility and none of the agency. So if you are assaulted, like, you're responsible because of the clothing that you're wearing.
Right.
But you have none of the agency in terms of like how to do anything about that. So the way that this ideology and this kind of investment in individualism works, I think is a similar thing that imposes a lot of responsibility and just evacuates agency. So like Deanne up front, you know, you're the boss of your destiny and what you choose to do. Mark, we hear him say in one of these little video conferences or whatever, you say the leggings are stale, you're stale. Sales are down, you're down. Like,
what does that even mean?
What does that even mean? Company,
well, and they don't get to pick the leggings, right? So you don't get to choose your inventory.
That's right.
So you don't even have agency over the box of things you're going to sell.
Correct. But you have all of the responsibility to sell it. And the responsibility to sell is based entirely on this like manifestation idea of like, if you are, well, I don't remember if it was Deanne or Mark who said this, but if you're happy and confident, you can sell anything.
Yeah.
So in that way, like Mark calls the company a pure meritocracy, but then also says like, this is the greatest psychological experiment in history. You get this box of stuff and what did you do with it? So, you know, the film does go into this a bit about like the ways in which these retailers are gaslighted. Like if there's a problem, you're the problem.
Yeah, I actually wrote that down. You're the problem. Like that's it. Like
inside of this narrative framing of you're your own boss and the kind of boss babe phenomenon that was such a thing at the time. So yeah, one of the things was like the way that rich people can simultaneously demand responsibility by blaming people for their own failures, but like also dodging or the failures that they experience. But then they dodge their own responsibility. So like in the deposition tapes that we get because of the Washington State case, Deanne, it's incredible. Her deposition tape is
I want to watch the whole thing.
Whoa.
That was...
Man, I have never seen anyone chew gum with that level of passive aggression in my life. And so, but there's all sorts of stuff. Like she founded this company, but there's all sorts of stuff that she just doesn't know. Like
the address of their building.
Address of your building. Are you a co-CEO? I don't know. So like the way that they kind of deflect their own not just culpability, but responsibility as people at the top. What Mark calls them storytellers. The whole thing grew because we're storytellers. That's what we are, you know? So
okay.
And then when they like say, no, we are not going to sit for a second interview, their like official LuLaRoe statement at the very end says that there are like opportunities found in personal responsibility and individual choice.
So this is one of the things that irked me is because and I was going to bring this up earlier. I would interrupt your summary because it was so well done. But like that whole part about how we get from how she sort of the swap meet to like 20, like to the maxi skirts to the voila LuLaRoe. Like we only get that from her.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that they actually are really good storytellers. And so what they have built, what they are actually selling is not leggings at all, but a story about success
and bootstrap success.
And so like I have like there's so many things where I wish, and I don't know how you do that. I mean, I know how you do this. You hire a research producer, like other places do. But like, I would like to have had the myth of Deanne challenged in some way.
Sure.
I think that a less cynical or critical viewer could see it as like, well, they succeeded.
She
and these
asked,
other people,
believed, and received. Man, she manifested that
she
stuff.
succeeded and they failed. And if they were as talented as her, then they would have been successful too.
Totally.
And the difference between, because there's a very easy way to read this as the reason 80%, they have this guy, the Fitzpatrick guy, who's like the MLM expert.
Yeah, Robert Fitzpatrick.
Yes, he talks about how like 80% have to lose, right?
Have to,
and like
mathematically have to.
That's
yeah.
There are those who'd be like, yes, and that's how life is. 80% are going to lose, and the really talented and the really hardworking are going to like. Yep. And so there's a way that by letting that initial like text myth of Deanne's success stand, like it's then you, then it doesn't get at the real core issue for me, right?
Of course.
We can, and like, even though it does in other ways, but I read that.
No, but that's like, I feel like, again, we talk a lot about how things that seem like bugs are actually features. And I think that is the way that a lot of corporate self-narrativizing works.
Yeah. I'm watching I'm watching this Vince McMahon documentary.
Yeah.
And he like tells the story of how he got the company from his dad. He bought the company from his dad.
Yeah.
And like the way he tells the story is like, I worked hard and I made this deal and I was like, but at the end of the day, like he got a massive discount, right? Like it's
sure.
But it's narrativized as, and then I took it from that. I made it from a regional company in the Northeast to a national juggernaut. And it's like, no,
I mean,
you didn't.
Yeah, but like that's it. Stella, one of the retailers, says, no, it's not Stella. It's Jill. Jill, we have a journalist Jill and a retailer Jill. Retailer Jill is a retailer who stays with the company. She's still part of it. I mean, as of, the making of this film. But she stayed part of it. She has nothing but good things to say about them.
Mm-hmm.
She says at one point, like, if LuLaRoe did anything that like a ton of other companies don't do, I sure didn't see it. And I think she's right.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Whether or not like financial structurings are conforming to whatever kind of rules and regulations are imposed by the Fed, like there is very much a consistent, not at all exclusive to MLM corporate ideology about your productivity, your success, how well you do is everything to do with your confidence, your belief, like they appeal to all of these abstract internal like emotional psychological things rather than thinking about anything that's policy based. So
that's why I found like all of the little bits and pieces from the kind of messaging and the leadership conventions like the most interesting, because they also, I mean, they also all looked like mega church services. It was like the fonts, the colors, all of that. But it was watered down self-actualization.
Or like self-actualization at its zenith. Like I'm not sure, like maybe this is self-actualization at its most vibrant. I don't know.
I want to believe in a healthy form of self-actualization.
I mean,
maybe that's the difference between self-actualization and self-knowledge. I don't know.
Yeah. The consumer base is also a constituency of corporate prey. Is basically my point there. The one of their ads from the company is like, you are smart, beautiful, amazing, confident, etc. Like we are mothers working together to build the future. And Deanne says that like what keeps her going is that she wants to see busy women succeed. Also, too, she gives them advice of like, y'all, all you have to do is give your husband a blowjob for 5 minutes a day, and he'll let you do whatever you want.
Yeah, that was
and so,
there.
like, I mean, gender politics infuse everything for me always and forever across time and space. But like the use of sexuality to just like passive aggressively get permission that is still implicitly a needful thing from husbands was striking. I thought one of the retailers talks about how like the initial as she's onboarded, like the initial kind of story is about women being empowered, but then husbands were supposed to take over and like the roles change. They talk about like retiring your husband so that they can stay home. And it's so there's a popular form of nominal female empowerment that serves only to reinforce an incredibly hierarchical,
and that's the
patriarchal family structure.
Yeah. And that's the thread that they don't, like they kind of go there because they talk about Deanne's mom publishing The Secret Power of Femininity, which
my God.
I was trying to find a copy
The subtitle of which, because I like this documentary for not having a subtitle, but the the subtitle of that book, though, is The Art of Attracting, Winning, and Keeping the Right Man for You.
Yeah.
Ask, receive, believe. Wait, ask, believe, receive. That's it.
Yes. Well, and
attract, win, and keep.
And that thing's still in print. It's got it's still in print.
Remarkable.
It shows up. I don't watch 90 Day Fiancé
yet.
But apparently
one day I want you to like explain to me and our listeners where your boundaries are with these reality shows. I'm so fascinated by like which things make the cut and which things don't.
I've tried watching it and it's just not it.
Okay.
But I will say as I was looking for this, it was apparently appears in the show. Like one of the women is using it as like a guide to find her husband. So that's relatively recent. So yeah, so it's still there in the world.
In 90 Day Fiancé.
In 90 Day Fiancé.
I see. Well, Deanne uses it in her conventions and her leadership conferences.
And apparently, from what I can gather, it came out during, like it was published as part of the response to the ERA in the 70s. Like that makes sense. That was its roots. Is again the
empowering women in the name of their own kind of Phyllis Schlafly feminism to take ownership over your incredibly narrow, very fixed sliver of space inside a family structure that has to look a certain way.
And that's where at one point Deanne says like she's described when they talk about the book, she says, my mom fought for women's rights.
Sure.
But like that adjective.
Well, and there's that lovely, I mean, but she also like thinks that the 60s, she says like the 60s and 70s were such a hard time because nobody knew their roles.
Something happened in the 70s and I don't know what.
Oh my God. Like, well, nothing happened for her, I guess. Like, I don't know.
Like, the 60s, the 60s, Leave It to Beaver, and then the 60s happened and things got confused. And I don't know what happened in the 70s.
Yeah. She'll learn about it when she learns the company's address. Tell me your takeaway.
Okay. Some cults are also scams, and some scams are also cults.
Okay.
And sometimes cults and scams are also gimmicks.
Okay.
And gimmick I'm borrowing again from Nick and Guy because I've been like reading all of her stuff. For her, it's another kind of aesthetic judgment thing. But a gimmick is something that promises to save us time, reduce labor, or expand value. So it like over promises these things and then under delivers. And so in that moment of that feeling of like this thing has overpromised and underdelivered, we call it a gimmick, and that's a kind of aesthetic judgment based on our experience of it. The thing that they keep saying in the documentary is like work part-time for full-time pay. Like this is supposed to be this is promising, this it has a specific kind of promise to it about expanding the value of your time, about reducing your labor. To the point, while at the same time, then you have women who accept this promise, hoping that they're going to be able to, spend more time at home, see their kids more, and then by the end of it, they're like, I was hiring someone to cook. I was hiring someone to clean.
Right.
I'm like actually spending more time away from my kids.
Right.
What I think is interesting is that there's a way. This goes back to the true comedy side, and Guy talks about how the gimmick is both this experience of dissatisfaction,
Mm-hmm.
but from the outside, people can identify. So, like the viewers can identify the gimmick and judge something a gimmick without. And for that side, it's actually attractive or even comedic. And there's
Mhm.
actually like a pleasure in watching the gimmick unfold. And she points to a variety of
Mhm.
examples, like in like P.T. Barnum and all these things. So for the audience, we're actually drawn to this documentary because we know it's overpromising.
How much of that is like just kind of good old fashioned Schadenfreude? Like
I mean,
how much of that is just taking some kind of pleasure out of the
out of the watching this someone
like
someone
suffer?
else,
Yeah.
I think partially, yes.
Or does she make that distinction?
Well, like the way she puts it is that it is an occasion for comedy and a catalyst for debate, and so there's a way that it's like, I think there could be Schadenfreude in like the people, like, but I don't think so. I think it's more there's a comedy or a pleasure in identifying the gimmick, right? So like,
got it.
if you're watching this thing, if you did Young Living and got screwed out of $10,000 and you watch this documentary, you're just pissed.
Yeah.
Like I've done this.
I guess that's my Arrested Development point. Yeah.
Right. But if you have a salary and a 401k and you pop this on Amazon one night, there's something about like identifying from the beginning, like this is bullshit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That feels good in a certain way. And so you're not dissatisfied. The dissatisfaction is for the person who's like, oh, so this got me thinking about sort of stepping back, like Scientology, which has a similar structure as you go up your Thetan levels to the different levels that they had of the pyramid, from like, it was like, retailer, leader, mentor, whatever, instructor. But even things like the way that the way in the episode 4 of this documentary and whatever episode 3 of the Hillsong documentary, there's this like genre convention now of like the episode about all the stories of people who left, right? They were very similar, right? There's a similar sense of dissatisfaction from the ex Hillsong folks, right? And so I think that like there's something about the promises that are offered, and Guy's specifically thinking about time and labor and value because she's putting this within a kind of capitalist framework, and so it makes a lot of sense in this example. But even the promises of like remnant church, of wealth and of health and all of these things is like what happens when we think about various forms of prosperity gospel as a gimmick in these ways. I don't know, but that for me, that's what I was thinking about, is like a scam. One person's scam is another person's cult in these various ways.
Sure. I mean, it's one of the many reasons that I don't like the word cults.
Right.
Because what it is that people get out of identifying someone as a charismatic religious leader or a cult leader as opposed to just a grifter,
right? Yeah.
Is something that I think keeps us from paying attention to the harm done by grifters.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Because they don't have that sort of like next level, I'm like messing with your religious beliefs or whatever, but they're still messing with your beliefs. They're still messing with
they're messing with your beliefs about yourself. Like you're the problem.
So I just not unlike the perimeters framing your TV viewing habits, I'm very interested in the perimeters around the different labels that we give to different things.
This is the moment in the podcast where I build this delicate block tower.
No, it's beautiful.
Of definitions.
It's beautiful.
And then you're like,
no. What I'm saying, what I'm doing.
Like, why does it matter? People got hurt. I don't care. It's all harm.
No, what I'm trying to do is say, what a beautiful Jenga tower, Mike. Yeah. That's I appreciate your like architectural savvy.
What is your takeaway?
Well, it's not unrelated. Like, yeah, this documentary is on Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
So we're all complicit. It's complicity all the way down. I'm thrilled that there is a documentary that is kind of pulling back the curtain on how MLMs work on a streaming service that will get to so many people.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, there is a really sticky relationship between, documentary filmmaking and corporate accountability. I hope that one of these days, we both have filmmaker friends. We're going to talk to some documentary filmmakers and get their take on that. Because I do think like, it's I don't know, maybe it's just a matter of like you do a little harm to create a greater good or something. I don't know. I mean, I drive a car. Like,
right.
So but I think that Robert Fitzpatrick makes a really important point that like successful prosecutions of these MLMs are really rare, and that unless the US ever looks at he says until, but the US ever looks at the entire system, it's all political theater.
Right.
And I think that that's true. And I liked the documentary. I'm glad that it exists. I think that it's really important. It's like the Brandy Melville thing. Like, I think it's really important to look at the business practices that get advanced in the name of a certain kind of rhetoric or ideology about individual success and personal beliefs or whatever. It leaves me wondering about that theater.
Yeah, it's funny to think about coming off of the last one we watched about Quinn Shamblin and sort of critique.
You're skipping right over Hell's Bells.
Oh, right. Sorry.
But that was kind of was a treat.
How dare
that was a piece of Halloween candy for our brains.
Yes, it was.
That was our candy corn.
It was for Halloween. Yeah.
Are you pro or anti candy corn?
Pro.
Yeah,
pro.
Me too.
I prefer the pumpkins.
Oh, interesting. I don't prefer the pumpkins.
They're a lot sweeter. Yeah. Huh. But like
about Shamblin.
There was this hang up about like, these churches, I don't think you used the word scam, but like these churches are, making money the wrong way.
Yeah.
Like these people become millionaires the wrong way.
Yes.
And then here it's like these people became millionaires, but then the messaging is wrong. Like it's like they're misusing the sort of inspirational language here, and then they're misusing the money here. And I think, which I found like kind of an interesting, like that's just sort of this interesting overlap.
Yeah, I mean, just the very starting point, the jumping off point of like pyramid schemes are illegal, MLMs aren't.
Yeah,
I cannot begin to articulate just how messed up I think that is.
Yeah.
And that's not our job here. It's fine.
So what you need is an MLM that fits under the First Amendment as a religion, and then you're just golden.
Well, I mean, institutions are individuals now. I mean, like corporations. Yeah. Corporations are individuals now under like federal law in so many cases. And so it makes loads of sense. It's just that kind of corporate hair splitting of like, you can make this much money in this amount of time, exploiting this number of people, so long as
there's rules. Actually,
don't step over this line, because like, what even is a good? What is a service? Why isn't success a service rendered?
They put this in the documentary. A legal MLM has a buyback policy. It has a 70% rule where you don't you have to sell 7% of inventory before you get more, and it has a 10 customer rule.
Sure.
So there you go.
Fine.
And actually, in the interview with the producers of the documentary, the guy moderating the interview makes the point of like, and it's interesting, it's on Amazon, which I guess makes a lot of sense, being a huge retailer.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know if you've seen these most recent Amazon commercials, but they're like Amazon is putting forward like how many small businesses run on Amazon, and it's literally the exact same like mythical narrative.
Yeah, of course it is. Of course it is.
Right? It's just that it's happening on Amazon.
It's like when Walmart did when they opened up their markets or whatever.
Yeah.
With like
like
lime green colors and little leaves and like
yes.
I don't
Bespoke Walmart.
Right. Like people have made way shadier and less substantive arguments successfully in court about what what classifies as a this or a that than what Deanne and Mark are saying about the goods that they provide. And which is not to say that what they're doing is chill. I think it's gross, but we do it all the time.
Yeah.
We do it all the time. And so, anyway.
What's your cult favorite?
Well, someone who has written the very book about these things and will say all of this way more elegantly than I am is the late, great Barbara Ehrenreich's book, Bright-Sided, How Positive Thinking is Undermining America. It came out in 2009. And it was in part as a response to the success of things like The Secret. Not solely. I mean, her kind of initial jumping off point is like her own experience with breast cancer and how that there was just such a infrastructure built around a cancer community that said, like, here's how you need to think and feel about that. And she's like, but it's not.
Interesting.
So it's been around for a long time. Ehrenreich's legacy is going to live long into the future. But if you have not yet checked out that book, you very much should. And it's to do with a lot of these things.
Really interesting.
What's your cult favorite?
Mine is the next stop and your continued journey to figure out the boundaries of my reality television. I'm really enjoying Love Island USA season 6. It's over. I didn't watch it live. The thing about Love Island
yes, I'm ready.
Is that every season is like 57 episodes long.
Okay.
And so
are they all an hour? Are they half an hour?
They're like an hour long. It's like it's a ton. It's like 36, I think. But like it's a lot. It's
the gift that keeps on giving.
But it's I love it because
there's a lot of love on that island.
It's the most honest of them all.
Okay.
And that like there's no
Qu'est-ce que c'est honesty, Mike?
Well, like there's no like it's like Bachelor, Bachelorette, you're supposed to get married at the end.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Love is Blind, you're supposed to get married at the end. It's about like finding your person.
Mm-hmm.
There's no expectation
that
anything is gonna work out for you.
Sure.
It's just like, here's a house in I think they're in like Fiji. Here's a house on the coast of Fiji. Here's like 12 hot people. If you couple up, you get to stay. If you're the odd man, it's like, musical chairs, making out musical chairs.
No man is an island, but then, love can very much live there.
If you don't couple up, you're on the outside, you got to leave.
Okay.
And we just do that for like, I don't know. And then there's other things.
Now this is Love Island USA. Yes. So we were there. Like, how many islands are there? How
many
countries
it was originally a British show.
Okay.
So it's sort of the Great British Bake Off of
oh my God.
of dating shows.
Ugh.
But it's interesting. Yeah. Okay. Anyways, it's worth if you.
All right, it sounds like something for me to not watch. I mean, yeah.
Just wait till season 3 of Traitors. I'm gonna send that to you. That's the one.
Perfect. I'm ready.
All right. Thanks for listening to Cult Favorite. Special thanks to the Department of Religious Studies at the University of Alabama for production assistance. If you are interested in pursuing an innovative master's degree that combines social theory and digital tools, look no further than the Religion and Culture Master's Program at the University of Alabama. The program is designed to equip students with sought-after analytical, communication, and digital skills that can be applied in any number of careers, while rigorous coursework and original research prepares students for prestigious PhD programs as well. They do write papers. They should,
We will see you we'll talk at you. We'll talk at you. We'll have see each other. We'll see each other in 2 weeks.
2 weeks, yeah.
Okay.
All right.